with the Belgrade Community Library, and Pat Doyle is going to speak to us about the Montana State Parks. I'm Sarah King, a member of the Advisory Council for OLLI, a volunteer element of the programming. So I just have a couple of announcements. So thank you all for coming. And could I get a rough idea of how many of you are OLLI members? Oh, good number. That's great. And if you're interested in becoming a member, visit montana.edu/OLLI, and up will come all our programming and how to become a member and everything to expect that is coming up for the rest of this semester. And we'll be having new information for next semester in due course. So the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute, which is what OLLI stands for, is a Montana State University program, but financed and supported as well, the university as well as the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. We are one of 125 independent OLLIs around the nation. And originally founded as Wanderlust, we were excited to celebrate 20 years of lifelong learning this year. And so this year we have all kinds of additional programming through the summer and all kinds of times when we're not usually active. So please join us in any of those events. So OLLI, like Wanderlust, is a membership-based organisation offering 50 or 60 non-credit learning opportunities each semester for individuals 50 years and older, and we also have other public events such as this one where you don't have to be a member and the age is not important. So our next event is tomorrow, an online Friday forum, which is broadcast by Zoom at noon tomorrow. It's going to be Will Downtown Bozeman Survive the Building Boom with Ellie Staley, who is Executive Director of Downtown Bozeman Partnership. And if you would like to join in that event, please visit montana.edu/OLLI to register to get the link. And if you register and get the link and you can't attend, you can watch it later. You'll get an email telling you where the recording is. As I say, our schedule of programs is on the website. Normally the library has some copies too, but it's kind of good news to say that they've all been taken. So that's a good thing, but please visit the website for more information. So again, thank you, Belgrade Community Library, John, and also Pat. Thank you very much. And now John is going to introduce Pat for us.
Welcome. Welcome everyone to this evening's OLLI presentation on Montana State Parks. Our sponsor for OLLI events is First Interstate Bank. My name is John. I'm the Community Outreach and Technology Specialist here at the Belgrade Community Library. Before I introduce our presenter, a few announcements. First, the bathroom and the emergency exits are going to be in the back corner behind you. And of course, please silence your cell phones. Okay. Tonight's presenter is the marketing manager with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, who will help us learn what makes these state parks uniquely Montana. Please help me welcome Pat Doyle.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sarah. So, like John said, I am Pat Doyle. I'm the marketing manager for Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. I do live in Helena. I work up at the state capitol or near that building right across the street. So you can blame me for pretty much anything that's going on. But this is a really cool opportunity for me. It's so rare that I get a chance to meet with a group like yourselves, where we're just talking about what makes our state parks special. A lot of times when I give presentations, it's about our marketing and public relations efforts for ethical hunting on private lands, or our marketing and communications efforts for aquatic invasive species issues, chronic wasting disease, as sportsman landowner relations, things like that. Not that those things aren't exciting and are very important as parts of what our agency does, but a lot of times our state parks sometimes kind of get overlooked, right? And that's not for any fault of their own, but we just live in a state that has unlimited outdoor recreation A lot of us, including me, I moved here over 24 years ago from the Midwest because I wanted to be close to mountains, I wanted to ski, I wanted to be on the river, a lot of the things that make life here really, really incredible. And that includes doing all these things on our vast amounts of public land in the States. But when you look at it cumulatively, good?
Yeah, right.
Thank you. We have over 30 million acres of public land in the States. That includes our national parks, U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, our state lands that Department of Natural Resources and Conservation manage, and even other properties that our agency, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks manages, like our 363 fishing access sites, and also our 63 wildlife management areas. But if you just take that 30 million acres and take our, I'll tell you how many state parks we have in a second, state parks out of that, what percentage of our public land do they make up our state parks? 1? I wish I could say you're close. 10%. We are 1/10 of 1% of our public land in the state of Montana is made up of our state parks. Now that may seem fairly insignificant when you're looking at 30 million acres and down to 34,000 and change that make up our state parks. But what I like to say is, and it may be kind of cheesy or cliche, give me a more significant 1/10 of 1%. Our state parks, which we have 55, and 7 of those are National Historic Landmarks. But these state parks, though they are, many of them small in size, things like postage stamps all over the state of Montana, they really do tell the story of Montana from a variety of different perspectives. So maybe from a recreational perspective, a historical perspective, or a cultural perspective. And so today, what I really want to do is, since I said I don't give this kind of a presentation a lot, we do have 55 state parks. We do have an hour and 20 minutes, so we can do the math about how much time we're going to talk about each park. But what I really did, one of the real, I think, advantages is that we have a lot of these parks across the state that I'm sure you are familiar with, or at least have them, you know their name, right? You associate them with a state park. But there's a lot of parks out there that people just we know exist, and that's not a fault of their own park, that's not your fault, but it's just, there's so many things to do in the state that are incredible, that a lot of these places just kind of get lost in the shuffle. So today, we're gonna go over all 55 of our state parks. Some of them we've got some good videos on to get kind of a broader context of what that landscape looks like. Some great still imagery of a lot of our parks, but really just going away with more of an understanding about where are these places, why are they special, and hopefully this aids in your travel. I know that for me and for my family, we have 2 grade school age kids, 5th grade and 2nd grade, and this is always the most stressful time of year, because travel soccer season starting soon, so ski team going on, but we have to make our plans for the summer, right? And we're all Montanans. We have a list of things to do that are like from the floor up to here, right? That gets longer every year. And it's amazing we're making these lists, but it is super stressful because someone's like, what are you doing on August 4th? What do you know I'm doing on August 4th? Like, I've been booked for 9 months. But anyway, so that's really what I would love to do today. Is just really take a dive into our cultural parks, our recreational parks, and our historic parks. Really talk about what makes these places special and how they do tell the story of Montana from a variety of different perspectives. But no government presentation would be complete without a funding discussion first. So we can all have some context about how these wonderful resources are funded. So Montana State Parks are fairly unique across the country in that we don't really have a cut and dry way of how we are funded. So most state park systems, if you go to other states, you want to go to the state park, you pay when you get in, you have a great experience to leave, or you buy some kind of an annual pass. Here in Montana, we don't have that. We have everyone who registers their car in the States has an option to pay an optional $9 fee the county treasurer's office when they do. And I know that everyone here, right, pays that $9 fee every year, even if it's begrudgingly. But that does ensure that your car and the occupants in that car have access to all 55 state parks across Montana for that calendar year. Out of that $9, not all that money does go to, I think it has a pointer on it, yep. Not all that money does go to our state park system. Some goes to Virginia, Nevada City, which are in kind of in your guys' neck of the woods in Madison County. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that area. Pretty cool stuff. Our fishing access sites are 364 that we manage as Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And another $1.37 out of that comes for community trail grants. We do have 83% of people that opt in to pay that $9. And so I am, an eternal optimist enough that it drives everyone in my family crazy. And when I got this job, and someone asked me that question, so what percentage of our population pays that? And I said, 83. So it goes to A, it's a great deal, and B, it shows a lot of the value of our state parks. We do get other funding mechanisms as well. We get some hunting and fishing license dollars, some accommodations tax, the tax we all love paying when we're staying at a hotel, which is 8% of your hotel bill, which is sometimes called the bed tax. Earned revenue, which is if you buy a hat at a state park, if you're an out-of-state person who chooses to visit one of our state parks while visiting a wonderful state, you do pay a day fee. Camping fees are in that too, things like that. We do get some coal tax as well. So a variety of different funding sources, but a lot of things in government. How are you funded as an A? Here's how we are. It's more of a, let's sit down and really talk this through. So like I said, our 55 parks really tell our state story through cultural, historical, and recreational means. And so I broke this presentation out into 3 sections. We're going to start with our cultural parks, which we really have some incredible properties. So for each park that I have mentioned, you all have your tear-off map with you. All those parks have a number on them. So each park that's going to be in here is going to have a number associated with it. So as I'm talking, if you're wondering where it is, you can raise your hand. I'd be happy to tell you where it is, but if you don't want to raise your hand, you can feel free to look down on that number. It'll show you exactly in the states where we're talking about. And I should have mentioned this before I started talking. If you did not get a pair of state park socks, please take one on your way out. If you've taken one and you wish you had another pair, I really don't want to bring all these back to Helena. So feel free to make a great stocking stuffer. Our kids have gotten them for the last 4 years. So our cultural parks. So we do have a lot of really incredible cultural parks in our states. One of them being Chief Plenty State Park, which is map number 39 on your tear-off map. But has anyone been to Chief Plenty State Park? Okay. So it's just an unreal park. So Chief Plenty was the last chief of the Crow tribe before they switched their Crow tribal government to a council. And Plenty was a really influential chief at the time because he really switched from a nomadic lifestyle to a more agricultural style. And so this park's in Pryor, Montana, just south of Billings. And so Chief Plenty, when he died in 1938, donated his homestead in the state of Montana. So we have his house, his farm. We still lease that out to other farmers in the Pryor area. But a really wonderful spot. We got some video, but I encourage anyone to go down there. It is our only state park. It is on a reservation. It's on the Crow Indian Reservation, and it's really it's a day use park. You can't camp there, but it is really a community center for the community of Pryor. We have tons of family events there, and it is really a community gathering spot. So I would encourage anyone to learn more of the story of Chief Plenty to head down to Pryor. Pryor. Yeah. So it's just south of Billings, and I thought I set this all to play automatically, but I don't think that I did. So I will just excuse everyone here. I'll go around to the next time.
What river is it?
Is Prior Creek?
Prior Creek. Thank you.
So Chief Plenty State Park, yes, that is Prior Creek that runs through the property. And there's also a spring on the property as well that's Chief Plenty Sacred Spring. Lots of people still stop by there and leave offerings in the spring. To the Crow people, spring water is extremely important in ceremonial purposes. So all across the reservation, springs hold a very sacred spot. So really cool park. I would encourage anyone who's in the there we go. Anyone in the Prior in the area that make a trip down there. You're a wonderful visitor center as well. So in the same area, spot in the map number 43, Rosebud Battlefield. I've never used the map for a thing like this before, so tell me how it works out. Rosebud Battlefield. This is one of our 7 National Historic Landmarks, much like Chief Plenty State Park. Is anyone here familiar with the Battle of Rosebud? So this was much a precursor to the Battle of Little Bighorn. This was the largest. Excuse me. This is the largest U.S. troop presence for a battle on U.S. soil against outside of the Civil War. So really, and this was about 3 weeks before Little Bighorn, where the Sioux and the Northern Cheyenne fought off, a size of over 1,000 U.S. soldiers, I believe, on site. The cool thing about the Battle of Rosebud Battlefield is that it's really undeveloped. So these are the only kind of signs out there. It's a 3,000 acre park that you can kind of walk around on. And we do still do a lot of archaeological digs there to really try to find out more about the story of the battle. A lot of things like this were really handed down through oral histories, especially through the Northern Cheyenne tribe. And those oral history is only as valuable as people that keep sharing that. So we did have a dig this year. We're actually looking to find some U.S. soldiers that were never repatriated from the site. We didn't find them. We're going to keep looking again for the next year. But a really interesting battle. It is pretty far out there in eastern Montana, but if you're in the area, it's kind of along the Tongue River area. Really beautiful spot, some great cliffs as well. First Peoples Buffalo Jump, another one of our 7 National Historic Landmarks. First Peoples Buffalo Jump is on map number 33. It is just south of Great Falls in Ulm, Montana. And just a really incredible spot. It is the largest buffalo jump in North America. And really significant to over 13 tribes from the Great Plains. We have a great visitor center there, some really wonderful trails where you can walk up to the top of the jump. You can also drive up there as well, which makes it fairly unique and fairly more accessible than a lot of our other parks. So just have a little bit of a video clip on First Peoples. Oh, sorry. Second time it's happened. So that's going to be like 5 or 6 minutes. Medicine Rocks, our next cultural park. Medicine Rocks is in Carter County in extreme southeast Montana. It's spot number 45 on the map. It is in between Baker and Ekalaka. I don't know if you've ever been to Baker or Ekalaka. Really cool part of the state, especially if you're down there in the spring. Medicine Rocks, I normally don't say this on the record, is my personal favorite state park. We camp out there at least once a year. When I'm working in the area, which is a few times a year, I normally try to camp there if the weather is okay. But just a wonderful spot. It's one of our lesser developed parks, so we just do have 12 campsites that are not reservable. Some years we have a camp host there, some years we don't. But if you're in the area, I mean, it's the plains, it's rolling hills, but then you see Medicine Rocks. It's a 300+ acre park. That's just this own little ecosystem with these sandstone cliffs and bluffs, and you can hike around in them. It's just a really cool place that kind of has its own biodiversity to it. It's kind of this island in the middle of the prairie. Super, super cool spot. Ekalaka is a cool little town too. There's a couple little pockets of the Custer-Gallatin National Forest south of there too, which have some pretty cool hikes and camping opportunities, but yes.
Why Medicine Rocks?
So this was a place for the Sioux, particularly in the Northern Cheyenne too, a place for fishing quests for a long time. So it does have a lot of significance there. I don't exactly know where that name came from. It is one of our older state parks, and that's a good question of who actually named that, but very, very cool park. If you're in the area, the Carter County Museum in Ekalaka is a wonderful spot if you're into paleontological things. They have a new executive director that's had some amazing fundraising, and they have a lot of great events down there. So it's a really, Ekalaka is a happening place these days. So.
I think that we've read some sign that they talked about there's so many sandstone rocks there, and there's holes in them, and that the wind whistling through the holes was medicine for good medicine. And that
could be, and it is, I mean, I have to say this, candidly, it is kind of creepy when you're down there camping alone, and you're out there, right, and you hear that, it's like...
Yeah, you're on a hill.
Yep.
And you can just see everywhere for a long distance, all around. It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really cool park.
But don't tell anyone.
Yeah. I won't. Outside of this presentation, whoever's watching it one. So Travelers Rest is our next state park. It is another one of our national historic landmarks. Travelers Rest is in Lolo, Montana, so just south of Missoula. It's an incredibly unique spot that it is where they discovered the only archaeologically verified remains of the Lewis and Clark expedition. They did stay on Lolo Creek for a winter. A really cool spot, though, with an amazing visitor center, amazing story to tell, not just about the expedition, but about a lot of our early inhabitants in the area as well. So I'm going to go this way this time. So this is Travelers Rest again.
what kind of remains did they find from Lewis and Clark's there?
I went to school in Missoula, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and when Travelers Rest was becoming a park, and that was the joke at the time that it was.
So they had camp there?
Yes, they spent the winter there. So before they went over there.
There were no remains, there was one that died. One of the Lewis and Clark died.
I believe.
At the very beginning of the expedition, before they really got started, there was a man that died of appendicitis or something.
Right, and and that's funny you say that because we're going on a cross country road trip this summer, and we're staying at a state park where that guy died.
Right.
Yeah,
He's buried.
yeah. So, yeah. So Council Grove, another park in the Missoula area, number 9 on your map. This is another one of our day use sites. It's an extremely important cultural site. And the fact that the treaty between the Salish and the U.S. government that ceded all the Salish's land to the U.S. government took place here at Council Grove. So a lot of our parks that don't have a lot of development, which is quite a few, like Council Grove and Rosebud Battlefield is another example, which you talked about a little earlier. These sites may not have a lot of infrastructure, like visitor centers, camping amenities, flush toilets, and things like that. But that doesn't mean they don't have a huge story to tell. And so as we move along this year, we are actively working with the Forest Service and the Salish people to really, kind of re-envision what kind of stories these parks can tell, especially where we don't have a lot of infrastructure. One of the things is that all these parks do tell the story of Montana, but without that context and without making these parks relevant, that might not make these significant places relevant to everybody, right? So you're kind of walking up to Council Grove, you may not see this nice historical or this interpretive plaque and say, it's a very nice creek, there's some great trails here. I had a great time, but you might miss that real story of why this place is a park, why is this important, why did someone, our state really choose to make this a state park. Pictograph Cave, another National Historic Landmark, spot number 40. It is just south of Billings, well, it is technically in Billings city limits. Really cool spot. There's 3 caves at Pictograph Cave. So there's Ghost Cave. Trying to see my state park knowledge here. Ghost Cave, Pictograph Cave, and Middle Cave, I believe. But Pictograph Cave is the one that is in the picture here. There is a ton of over 2,000-year-old pictographs in this area where people that come through the Billings area hunting would tell their story. So really significant spot. Another day use park with a wonderful visitor center. Some really cool interpretive trails kind of around the valley. And we've got a little video on this too. Is the video going to play? Oh, I have to click it twice. I don't even have to go over there.
Nice.
You can kind of see some of the pictographs in red right there and up here. And there's one of the other caves, that's Ghost Cave, which is right there. So a really neat area south of Billings, and the Bozeman Trail is right in that immediate vicinity too, just east or west of there. So one that's kind of close to home here, Madison Buffalo Jump, spot number 25. Has anyone been to Madison Buffalo Jump? All right, yeah. So we've seen a lot of increased visitation there, so thank you. But another great park and a great example of what I was talking about earlier is these really significant properties that we manage that have a really great story to tell. But we don't have staff there. You know, we have a great interpretive plaza there, but just a spot for people to explore on their own and engage with on their own. But just a wonderful place that has just a great view of the Gallatin Valley out there. And then Missouri Headwaters, another park is Headwaters. Heard of it? Been there? Great, and one of my favorite things about Missouri Headwaters State Park isn't even in the state park. It is the trails that connect Three Forks to the park. So if you've ever been out there taking bikes, things like that, we take our kids down there sometimes, and especially in the spring when it's still kind of cool out, but sort of in that in between if I'm not comfortable or not comfortable outside right now in shorts weather. And it's such a great community asset because it is you're biking over railroad bridges, over rivers, and it's a really safe environment too. So just a quick video on Missouri Headwaters after this. And it is a National Historic Landmark as well, and it feels rich. And it's on your state parks trivia book, page that I gave you. One of my favorite state park trivia questions has to do with Missouri Headwaters. It's what park has the state's oldest hotel at it? And it's Missouri Headwaters. That building that's on the right-hand side as you're coming in, it's Gallatin City Hotel for when it used to be Gallatin City, used to be the town. Those are Missouri Headwaters is before everyone kind of commerce kind of moved to Bozeman. But the hotel still exists, not in operation, but it is a very cool.
Where is it?
So as if you're driving into the park and the campground is on your left-hand side, it's that building that's in the field to the right.
Okay.
It's we've shortened up over the last couple of years with some historic preservation specialists, but it's a good trivia question to throw people off. Really gets it. So our historical parks, which we have a lot of. One of them is historical from more of a paleontological reason, but it's our largest state park, number 47 on the map, Mikoshiga State Park. So this is, like I said, our largest state park in Montana, over 13,000 acres. Has anyone been to Mikoshiga State Park? So you've been to Ekalaka, but you haven't been to Mikoshiga? Yeah. Anyway, not really in the same neighborhood. Sort of, by Montana State. But Makoshiga is a really wonderful state park. It is in Dawson County, right adjacent to the city limits of Glendive, Montana, and is just a classic example of Badlands topography. A lot of it was created by coal seam fires thousands of years ago, but it really also, just an unbelievable landscape that really rivals Badlands National Park. We have a lot of paleontological resources there. We do have a paleontological learning center in our visitor center there. So it's a paleo lab. Kids can go down, learn about paleontology. They have field schools from MSU that go out there. So a lot of the dinosaurs that are in the Museum of the Rockies were found either at Makoshiga or in that general area. So we do have a lot of digs going on out there with Dickinson State University of North Dakota. So just a really unbelievable park. Campgrounds, disc golf course, you name it, we have it. And it's, it can get real hot in the summer, but it is wonderful to visit that park all year round and kind of check out its otherworldly landscape. So. So yeah, Makoshiga is pretty cool, and so there's different parts of the park, and there's all of our reservable campsites are kind of by, on the lower level, close to our visitor center. But you can take these switchbacks that go all the way up on top of all these rims that overlook all of eastern Montana. There's some first come first served campsites up there that you're lucky enough to get one. Pretty incredible. So Fort Owen, our next spot, it's in the Bitterroot Valley, down in Ravalli County, south of Missoula. It's number 16 on the map. And Fort Owen is another historical day use park, really a place where it was the first Catholic church in Montana, one of our state's earliest settlements. And Fort Owen has actually gone through a lot of extensive renovations. That's what we're looking for. And the last year, where they're really working to shore up a lot of the old adobe architecture that's there, and really take a more active role in preserving this important site. So, like any state agency, resources sometimes are scarce, and this has been a real project that our Montana State Parks Foundation and also a friends group, the Friends of Fort Owen and Town of Stevensville, has really taken as something that really tells the story of the Bitterroot Valley, and they invested quite a bit of money in making it a more robust visitor experience. So, super cool park. And Bannock, has anyone ever been to Bannock? Yeah. So Bannock's pretty cool. It is, in my opinion, our state's best ghost town, or possibly our country's best ghost town. I've not been to them all, but I'm biased, obviously. But Bannock was our state's first territorial capital in southwest Montana on Grasshopper Creek. So before the capital was moved to Helena, it was in Bannock. Our first state territorial governor, Sidney Edgerton, was from Bannock. Really unbelievable area in southwest Montana. So it is sort of close to Dillon, Dillon, Polaris, Jackson, Metroplex. But what makes Bannock really unique is that how accessible it is. So we have over 100 buildings that still line Main Street, but the vast majority of them you can still go into. Yes?
What was the impact of the flood?
Sorry?
What was the impact of the flood?
Oh, the Bannock flood. Yeah, good memory. So in 2015, maybe was it? Yeah, maybe 14 or 13. There was a catastrophic flood in Bannock where, there was 10 feet of water flowing through town during the flash flood. And Bannock has always been prone to flooding. So what we did was we named it the Bannock Flood Mitigation Project. So basically above the town of Bannock, where a lot of smaller creeks funnel into town, we created a massive dam up there that basically creates a lake when flash flooding events happen. And there is we did a ribbon cutting up there a couple years ago, so I'm not up on all the flood mitigation terminology anymore as I should be. But there's essentially a gauge on this dam that can create, if a river is flowing at 100 CFS, so 100 cubic feet per second, so think of 100 basketballs per second flowing down as a cubic foot, that can reduce flows like that to like 2 cubic feet a second, and basically slowly let this water out over time. So it was an incredibly complex project because you're working in a historic ghost town. So think about if you had a model train set with historic buildings and bulldozers are driving past it, right? So we had to take a lot of real measures to track, like things like seismic impacts of bulldozers and excavators on historic buildings like that. But it was a really cool, it's one of those things where, these are things we have to protect. And if it's not flood, it's wildfire, because as someone who used to say we worked with Bannock's not getting any drier, so there is a variety of different threats to a historic town like this that need to be taken into consideration, and those are all done.
So what year was Sidney Edgerton sent out during the Civil War? Because Lincoln sent him supposedly to protect the gold and pay the Union soldiers.
Man, I'm trying to get through these, so I'm thinking that Sidney Edgerton, the first territorial capital was 1863.
It was probably during the Civil War.
Yeah, so I think that Bannock became a town in 1861. And then I think it was 1863 he became the first territorial governor. No, it was 1860, and then 1864 Montana became a town. That's the timeline.
Yeah.
But let's touch base
There
afterwards.
was competition for the gold. The Confederates wanted it also. So Lincoln sent Edgerton to try to get it for the Union.
Correct. Yeah.
History major.
No, that's a jail mark.
See, I try to only know each park like this. It's a fascinating story, and there's a much deeper story about how the capital eventually came to Helena, because after this it was between there was the thought of it was going to be either Bannock or Virginia City, and then after that it was going to be either Anaconda or Helena. And so I've seen some things about how the lobbying effort was working to choose between Helena and Anaconda. And there was all these kind of, stats that say that, only 5 people in Anaconda, men, like gentlemanly men, wear, wool hats. And in Helena, there's like 3,000 people that wear wool hats. And all these stats that try to say one town was so much more, I guess, cosmopolitan than the other one. So I will have to share that picture with you. I have that picture somewhere of the book. And I live in Helena. I don't wear a wool hat. So just a little bit of context before this Bannock video. This is a little bit different than the other ones. Bannock is still a community just with much less people in it. And one of the things we really try to do is make that come alive. Specifically an event called Bannock Living History. And so I don't know if anyone here has been in like historic, colonial Williamsburg in Virginia, where it is very much what we call like first-person interpretation. So, they don't know what cell phones are. There are people from all over the country that do come and essentially live at Bannock for a week and really make it. There's a sawmill, trappers, miners, that are really committed to living as, in the early 1860s. And it is a wonderful educational event. So we get, thousands of school kids that come out. We've taken our kids to it before, and it really is a glimpse into the past. People come from all over the country.
When is it?
It is the third week in September. So it's usually the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Is that Bannock Days?
So Bannock Days is a little bit different.
Different.
Bannock Days is still a great event. That's usually the third weekend in July. And that's more family friendly. There's fake shootouts in the street, and there's crafts, and there's something kind of for everyone at Bannock Days. But Bannock Living History is really committed to Bannock from 1860 to 1864. I believe. It's 40 years. So, and there's a quick video on this event because it was something that before I started working for FWP, over 7 years ago, this event was not on my radar at all.
Very diverse group of people came here from all applications. Some came here running from something, most came here running towards something that they never found. With hearts rather wide, there's just in the journey to get here. That anybody survives after arrival here is amazing. And it's a desolate place. It's a humbling place. It will humble you in short order. You just gotta give a lot of respect to the people and stay here and made it. Living history, like cowboy days or something, it's just to show the public what a daily life was for the merchants and the miners in the town.
So again, a really cool event. I would encourage anyone to go, and that's really one of the values that our state park staff do bring to their individual parks, is that they want to bring those stories out. They want people to engage with the park currently, but also with the past as well. So really cool spot. Anaconda Smokestack. Anaconda Smokestack is number 19. It is Anaconda. But it is interesting trivia about Anaconda Smokestack. It is our most inaccessible state park. You cannot actually get up to the stack because it is on a Superfund site. So we do have a viewing area, which is right near downtown Anaconda, where you can see the stack. I've only been up to the stack once, which was fairly recently. We were filming an episode of Backroads in Montana on PBS. So they got special permission to go up there from the mitigation company, but it was fairly tight security. And you had to wear a hard hat because the bricks fall off it. But it is taller than the Washington National Monument. It is 60 feet across on the top. So I think it's 575 feet tall. And you see it from the highway and it's like, oh, it's pretty tall. And then you get next to it, like, all right, that's pretty tall. Just, I think it is either the tallest or the second tallest freestanding brick structure in the world. So a really cool deal. And actually, and ironically, if you say that if it's an inaccessible state park, it can't really cost any money to maintain, but it is our most expensive park for electricity because we have to light it so planes don't hit. Yes?
How long will that mitigation go on for the Superfund site, do you know? Do you have a plan?
I don't know.
I'd say another century, is a safe guess.
It could be. So that's not something that, so we have the stack in the viewing area, but the land around it's not at WP's. It's still private land. But maybe someday. I know that they do for anacondas, I forget what anniversary it was for anaconda, maybe their 150th anniversary a couple of years ago. They were able to get access to it and bus people up there. Because for a long time, this whole area was a huge smelter, so the factory was enormous in Anaconda. If you're ever in Anaconda and get a chance to go to their museum and their town archives, please spend some time there. It's an unbelievable collection of history from that community. So a lot of people, this is something that they this is a big symbol of their community. So that had been years and years before people were allowed to go back up there on these bus tours they were buy tickets for. So it was a really cool way to play a small role in preserving, a lot of these big memories for these residents of the community. I'm thinking the batteries might be dead. So I can stand back there. Okay, right up. Thank you. All right, for Rogue Island, River 46, right next to, across the river from Miles City, Montana, which is Custer County, Montana. And another really cool park. It's along the Yellowstone River. It's got some little islands off it that you can reach when the water is low in the Yellowstone River. So you can kind of walk through some of these dry channels and dry channel beds. But it's got over almost 3 miles of trail. It's a great community park. And that's what, it's a great asset for the community of Miles City. And it's like I said, it's on the far side, on the west side of town. But just a cool spot just to grab a quick walk in. A lot of people walk their dogs there. It was named after someone from the Lewis and Clark expedition. So. And Giant Springs. Has anyone been to Giant Springs? So it's in Great Falls. It is consistently our most visited state park. It is good trivia for Great Falls. This right here is the Roe River. It is the shortest river in the world. So it goes from the springs to the Missouri River. So cool fact there. That's a good one. That's all that I believe that is on your trivia. But yeah, so Giant Springs, it is one of the biggest freshwater springs in the United States. It was discovered, not discovered, but Lewis and Clark saw it when they were coming here and made note of it. And it's a really wonderful community park. It is in Great Falls. But one of the things that makes it so special, it is part of their River's Edge Trail complex. And so you can kind of see some of these sidewalks going over here. Each side of the Missouri River is lined with trails in Great Falls, and so that's not all in our state park, but it's part of it, and it's a real unbelievable asset to the community. A lot of the land that's on either side of the river further downstream from us is owned by Northwestern Energy. It has a lot of trails on it too. We do manage that land as well. So the park may not seem like it because most people kind of concentrate them here, but it's almost a 4,000 acre park. So we have over 15 miles of trails in it. Just a wonderful place to explore in Great Falls. It's not in this picture. We also have our fish hatchery, which is right over here, so you can go feed fish, learn about more how Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks creates millions of fish and puts them in the river. So another cool deal. The springs themselves, people do actually come and drink out of them. I've seen people come and bring the 5-gallon plastic jugs and a hand cart and fill them up and go home. We don't advocate for anyone drinking surface water or claims that surface water is fit for consumption, but we don't stop people from doing it either. Another cool deal too, we have a great partnership with the Great Falls Scuba Club that cleans all the algae out of the springs every year. So if you're lucky enough to go down there and see a bunch of people scuba diving in the springs, we told them to go. And here's a quick video on Giant Springs. Tower Rock, another one in the Great Falls area. This was an area of note in Lewis and Clark's journals. It is outside of the community of Cascade, another park where we really don't have a lot of infrastructure other than some 2 different hiking trails to the top of the rock. It's almost 500 feet tall, but it is a great view from up there. The Missouri River. I don't know if you know the Hardy Bridge area of the Missouri River. You can see that from the backside. Really cool spots right off the interstate. I've taken many hikes there on my way back to Helena. If you need to stretch your legs, a cool spot number 32. And Granite. So technically, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks manages 3 ghost towns. So one, Bannock, you've already seen. Another one is Granite. And Granite is outside of Phillipsburg in Granite County. But one of the things that makes Granite very unique is that while there is a lot of dilapidated ghost town-like houses in the Granite area, we only own, as Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, 2 of them. One of them is the one that you're seeing right now, is the Union Hall, which has collapsed years and years and years ago. And then we have another smaller building, which is a small bank that's like a one room. It's almost like a larger. So a lot of confusion around places like Granite, where it is technically a ghost town, but most of it is private property. We only own these two buildings. But a great kind of treacherous drive up there outside of Phillipsburg. So I would recommend doing it in the warmer months if it's not raining. Some great views, a lot of awesome BLM land out there to explore. But a cool place nonetheless. You know, half the journey of Montana's getting done. So, and you can check Granite off the list too. It's a fairly obscure place. Clark's Lookout, outside in basically adjacent to downtown Dillon. Another one of our Lewis and Clark significant parks. Lewis did stand on Clark's Lookout. You kind of get a look at the view of the valley in 1805. So another very small park, maybe 2 acres. You can walk to it from downtown Dillon. Cool spot to stretch your legs if you're in the area. Elkhorn, so our third ghost town. So we've seen Bannock, we've seen Granite, and Elkhorn. And Elkhorn is in Jefferson County, in between between Butte and Helena, just outside of Boulder in the Elkhorn Mountains. And so Elkhorn is a little bit similar to Granite in that there is a lot of development in the Elkhorn area, which is sort of a ghost town. We only own these 2 buildings, which are great. You can walk in them, super well preserved, but there are quite a few people that still live in Elkhorn. So a lot of the management chaos you can manage is, you know, people coming up there and just thinking that the whole place is a park. People still live here. You can talk to them. But it is a cool spot. It's a great drive up there. There is, the Forest Service manages a lot of the forest around there. And there's some great hikes up to some really old cemeteries when Elkhorn was an actual mining town. So really, really, really neat area to explore, just with our 2 buildings and a lot of the other stuff that's going on up there. And a lot of people are starting to build up in Elkhorn again. So we'll see. Beaverhead Rock, another one that is adjacent to Clark's Lookout. And this was from the Lewis and Clark expedition, again in 1805. Sacagawea said that this was a landmark that she recognized. So let's try back. Another, you can climb up the rock. Like I said, there's not really any staff at this park either. We don't have a visitor center, but it's a really cool spot to, pull off the side of the highway and enjoy. It's on the way from Dillon to Twin Bridges on Highway 41. So we've seen our cultural parks, we've seen our historic parks, and next we have our recreational parks. And you're going to see a theme here coming in. So a lot of our recreational parks deal with water. People like to recreate in water, one of them. So this picture in the background is of one of our parks on Flathead Lake, Wild Horse Island. So we'll get into Milltown State Park, which until next year, when we do get another state park called Summers Beach on the northwest corner of Flathead Lake. Milltown is our newest state park. Is everyone familiar with Milltown? So Milltown is a little bit east of Missoula. It encompasses the confluence of the Blackfoot and the Clark Fork rivers. When I lived in Missoula, so late 90s, early 2000s, there was a dam at the confluence. So there was a massive toxic lake behind it. So it really wasn't the coolest area. You couldn't really use it. But the whole area was remediated. And so we have a quick video on this explaining that process. That it's our newest state park and open for business. But here is a picture of it from this year. People floating from the park 7 miles down to Missoula. It's a wonderful asset to be able to float to downtown Missoula. Super easy float. I did it on a paddleboard on a weeknight with some friends, and really there was probably over 1,000 people in the river corridor on the sides. It was super fun. So. Keep getting it to us.
Today we're here to celebrate the opening of the Milltown State Park, which is our state's newest state park.
We have 2 rivers that were dammed for centuries. The dam came out, and so the confluence of the Clark Fork and the Blackfoot rivers have been restored. The coming together of things here is the story of the place.
Well, in 1908, there was a huge flood that brought down mining waste from Butte and Anaconda, and it stopped here at the Milltown Dam.
In 1980, the Superfund law was passed, and one of the first sites put on the list was Milltown.
The dam removal was just the first piece of the process. Tons and tons of contaminated soil and sediment were transported.
One of the Superfund program's current emphasis is in land use, so that the land we clean up becomes a productive and useful part of the community. I can't think of a better example than this site.
Here at the Milltown State Park Overlook, we've got a trail that leads down to the edge of the bluff. It's a stellar view of a really important place. So across the river is the area that we call the confluence area. There is access to the river itself. There's a trail that sweeps along the rivers that will ultimately continue upstream. We're working on getting connections back to the Missoula Kim Williams Trail. We'd like to see Milltown State Park be sort of a hub for a trail network.
As we look around in the world that we live in, we see that a lot of places like this are hard to find. We as people need places like this.
I think one of the things this park really represents is a confluence between community and natural spaces.
This was designated as one of the most toxic places in America. And now today, wildlife is flourishing, native plants are being restored. We have a place that people are happy to bring their families to and feel healthy about. This is a model for the rest of the country.
Every one of us want a good life for our families, for our future. Everything that we do is for future generations.
So a very cool spot, and like our park manager, Mike Studi said in that, is that the goal is to connect all those trails to the Kim Williams Trail, which goes along either side of the river, of the Clark Fork River in Missoula. And like so many of our parks that are close to urban centers, so think, you'll see a lot more of them here. Spring Meadow Lake is a great example of it too, is that, like Giant Springs, is that we want those connections to the community. So we're not just in the state park operating itself. This is a place for the community to gather, to travel through, and to be a part of that overall conversation of why these places are important. Spring Meadow Lake, it is in Helena. It's a 20-acre lake, I believe. But it is an old gravel pit that's filled up with water, and we made it a state park a number of years ago. Wonderful community asset. There's not a lot of water in Helena. So a great place to take your kids today to fish. I was ice fishing out there with my dad a couple of weeks ago. Just a real easy place to recreate in town. We have a couple-mile trail that goes around the lake. Some other recreational lands that are owned by our local land trust that are right next door that connect to the Scratch Gravel Hills, which is the 5,000-acre parcel of BLM land in the Helena Valley. So, more of those kind of connections, but a really just a great community park. Lone Pine State Park. This is the Lone Pine Overlook. This is outside of Kalispell. Another day use park. You can't camp at Lone Pine, but it does have a 15-mile trail network that is really Kalispell's community trail system. So another park that is a state park, but really immense, community value to Kalispell. So we have a great archery range there, a wonderful visitor center that talks about the area. Just a really incredible spot with a great view of town. Lake Elmo, another one of our urban parks. Lake Elmo is in the Billings Heights. So another park that's just like Spring Meadow, essentially, just a great water-based asset for people in town. Canoes, kayaks, paddleboards. These are places that are packed on the weekends, especially in the summertime. A lot of our day use urban parks do have a great beach as well for people to enjoy. Smith River, so I'm sure no one's heard of the Smith River, so we can go past this one. It's number 30 on your map. It is the only permitted river in Montana, so it's in central Montana, the Little Belt Mountains. It is a 64-mile float from Camp Baker, which is outside of White Sulphur Springs, to Eden Bridge, which is close to Cascade. Like I said, it is, if you ever get a chance to float it, pull a permit, have a friend who has a permit, be super nice to him.
Is the whole river the state park?
So the river corridor is duly managed. So it is technically Smith River State Park. There is private land on the river corridor. There's also U.S. Forest Service land as well. We are the primary managers of that. The Forest Service does have river rangers on there as well. But, Montana FWP, state parks, we run the permitting system, all the management of that. So a really spectacular place, a really special place for a lot of Montanans. Painted Rocks, number 20, extreme kind of southwest part of our state, the West Fork of the Big River, down in Ravalli County. Another Department of Natural Resource Conservation reservoir out there that we manage the recreation on it. So we do have several campsites in the area. Some are and they just came reservable this year, only for the weekends. But a really cool spot in a really popular river corridor that we're lucky enough to manage. But it's deceivingly far. Painted Rocks is one of those parks that I always say that, oh, I'm in Missoula, I can get to Painted Rocks pretty quick. It's like a 3-hour drive. But it's a wonderfully beautiful area of that part of the state. Logan and Thompson Chain of Lakes State Park. So this is on Highway 2, in between Kalispell and Liddy in Lincoln County. And so Thompson Chain of Lakes is comprised of, we're gonna get there. It's Upper, Middle, and Lower Thompson Lake, Loon Lake, McGregor Lake, Crab Lake, and Crystal Lake. So we do have campsites on all of those lakes. None of them are currently reservable. They're all first come, first served. We have over 160 sites, and it's just a really, really undiscovered gem up there. I don't recreate as much as I should in Northwest Montana, but when we have camped at Thompson Chain of Lakes, it's always been an unbelievably awesome experience. Just a great place to be. Frenchtown Pond, another one. I think we've seen the theme of a lot of water-based sites. Frenchtown Pond is west of Missoula, near the community of Frenchtown. Just another day-use site. Just a really easy spot to go recreate. That's what a lot of these more urban parks really represent. Is a place where you can go recreate and not have to think about it, not have to plan out that really day-long excursion. So another really cool spot. And Prairie Dog Town, one of our most contentious parks for FWP employees. If you're an FWP employee, you either love Prairie Dog Town or you hate Prairie Dog Town. There's no in between. So it is, when we talk about polarizing politics in our country, this is polarizing politics in the FWP culture. I am in the camp. I love Prairie Dog Town. I think it's great. It is in the town of Great Cliff, which is in between Livingston and Billings. It's just a short pull off the highway. The park's fairly small, and it's just a prairie dog town. We don't have any staff there. We have a little loop in the road. We have a pit toilet, but it's great. I mean, it is what it is. It's a prairie dog town. You go there, you spend 10 minutes, you spend 10 hours. But there's a lot of prairie dogs, and but it's a cool kind of uniquely Montana thing. So so if you're ever in the Great Cliff area, Prairie Dog Town's your stop.
There's a population.
I don't know. I would, like I said, one of the benefits of my job in marketing is I am not in the deep sciences side. But being a person who sort of understands critical mass, it's got to be reached at some point, right? I don't know. That would be an interesting question, though, of how much you know, what is the holding capacity of 4 acres for
Right,
rink?
but I thought, you know, sometimes disease runs through those.
Sometimes disease does, I know that bubonic plague, I believe, or I don't know if it's bubonic plague, but there is a plague that does really impact prairie dogs. And I know that prairie dogs, how they operate is they will, if they realize that in a certain area that they're in, their resources are running low, they will like send out scouts to like other areas to say, okay, on this hill, there's X, Y, and Z, you gotta get over there. I don't know why, that would, to the layperson like myself, it would have seemed like that would have happened a long time ago, a prairie dog town, and it was skedaddled, but I don't know. I would encourage you to go, come up with your own conclusions about what is going on there. But like I said, I'm on record now that I am a prairie dog town supporter. Cooney Reservoir, which is one of our most visited parks. It is in Carbon County, southeast of Billings, or southwest of Billings. Large reservoir, Beartooth Mountains are in the background, and I always put this picture on when we're talking about Cooney because it's so, you know, you don't see a lot of sailboats in Montana outside of Flathead Lake and Canyon Ferry. So if someone does bring a boat to a park, because they're not, you know, there's no place to moor it there. I always find that fascinating. So, but a really cool park, and it's part of the state where there's not a lot of water-based recreation, so a real asset there to the Billings Red Lodge area. In Lewis and Clark Caverns, I heard someone say before they were going to hike there, really unbelievable park. It's our state's first state park. Lewis and Clark did not go there. They named it that so it would be more recognizable in the 40s. But a really, really wonderful cave tour that they have there. They do have another cave tour they started that last year, so a second offering that is more accessible for people that are mobility impaired. So a really cool opportunity there. That I would encourage anyone, if you have family coming in from out of town, it's kind of one of those things that I think is all of Montanans were obligated to do is take a tour there. But one of the really cool things about Lewis and Clark Caverns State Park is that it's not just the cave. We do have over 20 miles of hiking trails in the state park. It is one of our larger state parks at 4,000 acres. And the geologic things going on in that park, in that area, along the Jefferson River are really astounding. All the limestone that built our state capitol actually came from that area. It's called the London Hills in the Madison, the London Hills part of the, I'll think of the what formation it is. Madison limestone. I think that's right. But I will think of that before. That's another trivia question, I think. But here's a quick snapshot of, I know we're running low on time here, but we're almost at parks. Quick snapshot of what the area around Lewis and Clark Caverns is like outside of the cave. I did check, it is the Madison limestone, so according to Google. So one of our last few parks, park number 48, Hell Creek State Park, which is on the south side of Fort Peck Lake in east central Montana, up in Garfield County. Really unbelievable landscape if you've ever recreated or been around Fort Peck Lake. It's not the easiest spot to get to, a lot of dirt roads, a lot of gumbo roads out there, but well worth the trip, especially if you're into fishing or ice fishing, which is fishing. But really a pretty spectacular spot. Black Sandy State Park is close to Helena. It is on Holter Lake, so the 3 lakes that are in the Helena area, Canyon Ferry, Holter, and Hauser, are all Canada lakes, part of the Missouri River system. So Black Sandy is along in the middle one, so on Hauser Lake. So just another good recreational opportunity there with boat slips and things like that. Placid Lake, which is near Sealy Lake. I know someone was mentioning recreating at Sealy Lake before. Another great spot, Placid Lake, because it's got some really famous flat waters, so great for water skiing, wakeboarding, things like that. Brush Lake, so our only water body that we manage that has no fish in it because of the high alkali content. It's in far northeast Montana, so it's in between, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Medicine Lake, Dagmar area, so it's all south of Plentywood, Sheridan County, but a real valuable water asset, as there's not a lot of water up there, but a really cool spot. Plentywood's a neat little town if you're ever north of the High Line. Beavertail Hill, it's on I-90. It is east of Missoula. Another great spot right along the Clark Fork River. It is one of our parks that we do offer teepee rentals as well. So we do have about 7 parks that you can reserve a teepee for the night, for the day. So a pretty unique way to spend an evening in the park. Whitefish Lake, I'm sorry, I know we're pressed for time. Whitefish Lake, obviously on Whitefish Lake in Whitefish, Montana. Another great spot because there's not a lot of public access on Whitefish Lake. But another thing that's really cool about this park is you can walk to town. It's literally adjacent to the community of Whitefish. You can walk to a nice dinner, grab a beer, meet up with friends. So a real asset there to the community and giving people access to a pretty cool lake. Lake Mary-Ronan, it's in the Flathead area, so it is a little bit west of Flathead Lake, so it's kind of like Big Arm State Park. But another just a water body that's kind of off the radar. And great fishing at Lake Mary-Ronan, but a wonderful spot to bring your family. If you ever need a group use campsite, we have group use campsites that have space for multiple different units. Lake Mary-Ronan is your place. That is my personal favorite group use campsite in our state park system. Sluice boxes in central Montana. So this is south of Belt, so it's kind of in between Belt and Nyhart. Really unbelievable park that is Belt Creek that flows through sluice boxes, and a lot of people call this a mini Smith River. It is very popular in the spring for people to float Belt Creek. It is an extremely technical float, but a really wonderful hike as well. We have trails that go all through this whole valley, up on the rims. A very undeveloped park, but really a ton of potential. It is a lot of people from the Great Falls area do utilize sluice boxes, but a real hidden gem there in the Belt Mountains. Salmon Lake, another park in the Sealy Lake kind of corridor up there on Highway 83. Just another great place to camp. Water-based recreation is king. Lost Creek, another one that's close to Anaconda, number 18 on the map. Lost Creek, it'll say in your state parks trivia, is the only park where you do not know, no one's ever found the source of Lost Creek. I don't know if that's true or not. The park manager told me that and I put it on the trivia list. It seems to me a little bit far-fetched, but it's a cool story, or at least a cool story I'd like to hear. But a really small park outside of Anaconda. It is but a gateway to the Anaconda Pintler Wilderness. So all the trails outside of there lead into the wilderness complex. It's in the Flint Creek Range, so some really unbelievable high alpine territory you have access to from Lost Creek. Some really great rock climbing opportunities in the park as well. Ackley Lake, good trivia question. This is our state's second state park. Another water body in Judith Basin County, so kind of by Stanford, Hobson, Utica area, on Highway 200. Really popular in the summer and in the winter with fishermen, but a really popular camping spot people. Les Mason, another one of our parks on Whitefish Lake. This park does not offer camping. It is a day use area, and it is the only public access point, which there are 3 on Whitefish Lake, which is Les Mason State Park, Whitefish Lake State Park, and there's a city-run beach. This is the only spot on the lake that allows dogs, so Les Mason is very popular. It's Whitefish's dog beach. And then finally, Flathead Lake. Everyone knows where Flathead Lake is, I am sure, but we are lucky enough to manage 6 parks on the lake, which are Wayfarers, West Shore, Big Arm, Finley Point, Wild Horse Island, and Yellow Bay. And as of a few months from now, Summers Beach on northwest part of the lake will be our newest park unit. So just a shot from Wayfarers, shot from West Shore, Big Arm. We do have yurts you can rent at Big Arm, which are very popular. Finley Point, and Wild Horse Island, which is almost a 3,000-acre island in the middle of Flathead Lake. And if you can get to it, hike around, unbelievable terrain. And finally, Yellow Bay. So, I think we were right on time. I do have, that's my contact information. I don't expect you to write it down. I have business cards. If you have any other questions or want to chat more, I'll be around. Yep, thank you for answering.
Give a special thanks to Pat for making his way down from Helena. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation.
All right, cool. Thank you for your interest.
Commemorate your first presentation on state parks.
All right. Well, very cool. Well, this is so wonderful. Thank you all for having me.
Please help yourself to refreshments. Like I said last time, I have an office full of them. So please take your fill. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next time.
I never actually yeah, no, it's all really cool.